Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome. Thank you for joining us this evening. I am Ryan Collins. I'm the Executive Director of the Midwest Writing Center. But more importantly, tonight it is my pleasure and honor to be the host of the Spectra Reading Series, where we host the faculty reading for the David R. Collins Writers Conference. I'm so excited. We were just talking about dogs. And that made me even more excited. It's going to be great. This is always one of the best readings of the year. I feel like Spectra always brings it, but I don't know if we bring it on any night of the year more than this one. So thank you for joining us. Thank you to everybody on the Zoom. Thank you to everybody who's out there in the internet. Thank you especially to our readers. It's been a great 2 days. This is the first time in all the years I've been working on the conference that I've been able to sit in at least a little on all of the workshops. And holy wow. I'm doing other things and I'm still learning so much. So I'm just so very, very grateful, filled with unabashed gratitude right now, am I. Along those lines, we want to thank our sponsors for the conference and for a lot of things we do at the Writing Center. We want to thank Modern Woodmen of America for being a founding sponsor of the conference. We've done this conference 16 years. They've sponsored us all 16 of those years. We really appreciate their support. Making this happen. We also want to thank the Regional Development Authority for sponsoring or for granting us or offering us a grant, I guess, to help make this conference go, and a lot of other programs at the Writing Center go. We also want to thank the Illinois Arts Council Agency for supporting our operations and a lot of our programs, particularly the Young Emerging Writers Program this summer, which we got a special grant earlier this year from IACA, which supported the whole YEW program, all three programs that we're doing. So we're super grateful to them for everything that they do. And we want to thank the Figge Art Museum, where we usually would have been for the keynote event last night. And obviously the mighty Rostocks, where we should be right now all together in that beautiful space with their good whiskey and the better people who work behind the bar and make it go. Ben, if you're out there listening, we love you. And we also want to thank the St. Ambrose University English Department, who usually hosts this conference on the campus of St. Ambrose. Alas, we can't be there right now. Next year, we hope to be back. We hope to be back for sure. A couple other quick announcements and things to look for. So we are publishing an anthology. It's going to be coming out early this fall. We asked local writers last year, because last year was such a fun year in so many ways, to write about surviving that year and all the disasters and challenges and difficulties, personal and public and otherwise. And so many people, I think 47 contributors we have to this anthology, met that challenge admirably with excellent work. Misty Urban, who's an excellent writer herself, headed up the editorial efforts. We're so excited to publish that anthology. We'll be doing a lot of events around it, but we will be doing an outdoor event at Rostocks in September, I believe, related to that. So date is forthcoming, but just wanted to put that out there and check that out. We'll have the pre-orders up soon. It's in production now. We're so excited. We also have 2 chapbooks coming out from Laura Ring in Chicago, Illinois, and Aubrey Ryan in Davenport, Iowa, as part of the Foster Stall chapbook series. This was the first year that we did that. Those books will also be coming this fall, and we'll be doing some events around those. So just wanted to shout those out, because those are the kind of events we usually do at Spectra. We're always doing a lot of different programs, anything related to writing in the Quad Cities. We want to be a part of it. So if you're in the Quad Cities, or really if you're in the Midwest, look us up, come find us. We would love to work with you and write more light into your life, because we can all do that. So with that, I think I'm just going to get down to it, because I am here to hear all these people read and not hear myself. So we are starting with one of my favorite writers. A lot of these are all kind of like some of my favorite writers, but I've known Liz now for a few years. Liz has been very generous in coming to the conference for a few years in a row now. She was our keynote speaker last year. And I can't wait to hear what she's going to read. So I'm just going to introduce her real quick and we'll get into it. Liz Lenz. Liz Lenz's writing has appeared in the Huffington Post, the Washington Post, the Columbia Journalism Review, New York Times, Pacific Standard, and so many others. Her book, Godland, was published in 2019 through Indiana University Press. Her second book, Belabored, was published in 2020 by Bold Type Books. Liz's essay, All the Angry Women, was also included in the anthology Not That Bad, edited by the mighty Roxane Gay. Liz Lenz received her MFA in creative writing from Lesley University. She lives in Iowa with her 2 kids. Check her out on her Substack, Men Yell at Me. It is fantastic. It's the best thing in my inbox all the time. Please welcome everybody, Liz Lenz.
Hello. Hi. I know so many people because I love teaching at this wonderful conference. It's such a beautiful community that Ryan and Sarah and everyone have put together, and I miss that I'm not there with you all, shouting at you in a little classroom or hanging out with you at the reading. And I am going to apologize. I am going to listen to all the readings, but I do have 2 kids and 2 dogs, and really working on borrowed time here. So if chaos ensues, everybody's locked out of this room, and if chaos ensues, let's just go with it. But I'll just pretend like it was all part of the show. But at my last year, I had a book come out. It's a terrible time to have a book come out, but it came out right after the derecho hit. So literally the next day, and my house was pummeled. Not too bad, but still bad. I'm not really a Midwesterner, so I can actually complain about things. I can be like, yeah, and like knocked off part of my roof. That sucked. Well, other Midwesterners are like, well, I didn't have a tree through my house, so I'm blessed. It sucks. Anyway, but I had to do the book event in a hotel room in Coralville while my kids decided to strip down to their underwear and like were crawling around the back. And it was perfect because the book's about motherhood. And then I was like, but we don't have that here. Let's hope. Okay. In my class, you were talking a little bit about, I know it's probably obnoxious when instructors talk about their own work, but I was using it as an example of when you can be too excessive with description and then editors cut things out because they're not working for you. So I referred to an essay that I wrote about the Miss America pageant, that was one of the last things I did in real life before the world shut down, was I went to Connecticut to the Mohegan Sun and wrote about the Miss America pageant. So I'm gonna read it. And so we're all gonna think about beauty. So here we go. The clerk at the Holiday Inn looks me up and down and asks me if I'm here for the Miss America pageant. Yes. He winks. You're competing? I roll my eyes. The lobby smells like bleach and floor wax. It's obvious I'm not competing. It's so obvious that it's become a running joke. I tell my friends I can't hang out the night of the pageant, which is also my 37th birthday, because I'll be at the pageant. Why, they ask. I'm competing, I say, and they all laugh. Everyone laughs too hard at this joke. Even my mom responds to my joke by reminding me that my sister Kathy would have done well in a pageant. I think she means blonde and busty and super good at makeup and hair, but it still hurts a little. Even though I'm a feminist and try to be body positive and say things like, everyone is beautiful, inside, I'm still the underweight girl with the crooked teeth, large blue glasses, short fluffy hair, and an insatiable desire to share the things I read in the encyclopedia. Still the girl who Tim B called horsemouth in 8th grade, and who Damon T relentlessly kicked in AP biology my freshman year because he said I was uglier and got uglier when I opened my mouth. And now I live a life on the internet where strangers tell me I have Seabiscuit teeth. Tim B, is that you? But a small part of me wishes I looked like a pageant queen. A lot of us wish that. We wish we could somehow possess the beauty and talent that would let us win at the losing game of being a woman. That's why pageants still exist. And that's why I'm here, to witness the enduring allure of a crown and a dress and a stage. But the fantasy is coming unraveled. Instead of Atlantic City, the pageant is in Connecticut. Miss America is near death, and it's partially Gretchen Carlson's fault. Before the blonde bob and the Fox News job, and before that job went to hell, and before Carlson blew the whistle on the widespread sexual harassment at Fox News, she was crowned Miss America in 1989. Her win came the year the pageant rules changed to make talent 50% of the voting. Carlson, a violin prodigy and Stanford student, gave an energetic performance. Her interviews were so holy, the judges called her the Sunday school teacher. When she was crowned Miss America, she cried while wearing a sparkly blue dress with silver accents. Carlson returned to Miss America in 2018, shortly after suing Roger Ailes for sexual harassment, for which she ardently believes she invented the Me Too movement. She did not invent the Me Too movement, but she took over the Miss America organization as the board chair. The Miss America organization needed its own makeover, not to mention a bit of Carlson's newfound Me Too clout. It recently had its own scandal after emails from the then CEO Sam Haskell and other members of the organization were leaked. They said horrible, nasty things about the bodies of the former Miss Americas. And one of the emails, lead telecast writer Louis Friedman calls former Miss America Mallory Hagan a blimp, and Haskell called former Miss America's cunts. Haskell eventually stepped down, and Carlson, the self-proclaimed leader of harassment and assault survivors, took over the organization. She was supposed to modernize Miss America. She was supposed to, well, not make it feminist. No one here really likes that word, but make it less regressive, if not progressive. Carlson immediately canceled the swimsuit portion of the competition, and then she changed the evening portion to a red carpet where the contestants would answer more questions. That changed again in 2020 when finalists were required to pitch a social impact initiative as well as answer an onstage question. To be fair, it was a good instinct. From the moment she was crowned Miss America, Carlson has spoken out against the infamous swimsuit portion of the competition. She wanted to shift the emphasis away from women's bodies to the women themselves. But the pageant has always been about the body, and the change was forced on an institution deeply rooted in traditional forms of femininity. The Miss Americas did not like it. Not that it mattered. Even before the leaked emails, the Miss America organization had left the pageant in a precarious situation. Televised ratings were dismal. By 2017, only 5.35 million people, I have to read numbers, I hate reading numbers, watched the pageant. And in 2018, that number dropped 19% to 4 million. With those dwindling viewership numbers, ABC dumped them. To add insult to injury, the pageant was basically homeless. In 2018, it moved from Atlantic City to Las Vegas, but didn't truly have a home. The message boards grumbled that Miss America had become the Gretchen Carlson show, and former Miss Americas took public swings at Carlson. The 2004 winner, Erica Dunlap, openly rallied against Carlson, telling me in an interview that Me Too has nothing to do with the pageant. Unless a contestant uses that as her issue of concern, as her platform issue, Me Too and Miss America are completely mutually exclusive, Dunlap said. There's no reason for us to overlap those two movements, organizations, ideals. They don't coincide. Miss America 2018, Kara Munn called Carlson a bully and asked her to step down. It was all out beauty queen civil war. It wasn't exactly the changes Carlson was making, but how she was making those changes. Her detractors claimed she was forcing everyone into her singular vision. They didn't like how she enacted the change, and Carlson, for her part, did not like their attitudes. 4 states were banned from the pageant. Eventually, there was a lawsuit. The lawsuit alleged that Carlson was acting illegally, trying to shut down dissent. Board members were quitting left and right. Eventually, the lawsuit was dropped. The woman who initiated the lawsuit, Jennifer Vadenbarth, Miss North Carolina 1991, and a former Miss America organization board member, told me in May the lawsuit was too expensive to continue. Plus, Carlson could fight. She has a lot of that Ailes settlement money. Carlson eventually stepped down from her role with the organization in June of 2019, but her fingerprints are all over the current pageant. Randy Howes, who's been organizing pageants in the DC area for almost 30 years, told me that the mood at the previous Miss America pageant was tense. Gretchen didn't dare show her face anywhere. Neither did Regina. He was referring to Regina Hopper, the CEO of the organization at the time of the pageant, and close Carlson ally. Hopper later resigned her position in January of 2020. The pageant, which emerged from the chaos, is the pageant I'm at. It's diminished. It's in a casino in Connecticut. It's the week before Christmas. Usually the pageant is held in September, but not this year. Here we all are, right before Christmas in a disorienting casino where Miss America organization and the Mohegan Sun all desperately hope the pageant will be bigger than the Barrett Jackson's Northeast auction of collector cars. It's not. The Miss America pageant wasn't supposed to be at the Mohegan Sun Casino, but it makes sense that the pageant would end up in a place that's both a triumph of capitalism and an absolute hellscape. The casino is divided into two main areas, Earth and Sky, but once inside, both real Earth and real Sky immediately recede. It's simultaneously soothing and disorienting. Everything anyone could possibly need is right here, especially if needs consist of Sephora and Bobby Flay's Bar Americain. The simulacrum of the American landscape isn't conceptually that far from the pageant's birthplace. Miss America began in Atlantic City in 1921 as a bathing suit competition, the brainchild of Atlantic City businessmen who wanted to extend the tourist season. Thousands lined up to watch white American women in knee-length swimsuits parade down the boardwalk. Wearing a bathing suit on the boardwalk was illegal, and the contradiction shocked people at the time. A woman wrote to the New York Times in 1924 to express her horror that the suits not now be permitted, but invited on our boardwalk for thousands to look at. But if it felt progressive to allow women to don one-piece suits on the boardwalk, it was actually quite the opposite. The suits were allowed because the women were being judged against a standard that, even at the time, was designed to rein in women and keep a stranglehold over their self-expression. Historian Kimberly Hamlin writes, "The judges were looking for a contestant whose looks and persona radiated a particular type of womanhood, innocent, traditional, non-threatening, and whose image would convey certain behavioral codes to the rest of America." The judges found this ideal in 16-year-old Margaret Gorman, crowned the first winner in 1921. By putting femininity on display and judging it, the pageant acted as a national corrective to the changing image of women in the 1920s. Women's suffrage, the mainstreaming of Black art and culture during the Jazz Age, and flappers. The pageant was instructive, effectively showing women how to look while wearing a swimsuit. Take Gorman, for example. Instead of a flapper bob, she had long soft curls and wore stockings with her swimsuit. She wasn't so much a beauty queen as a representative of an aggressively wholesome standard, white, feminine, and unchallenging. That's far from the Miss America PR line today. Miss America has always been a disruptor, said Hopper, the CEO, who had been ignoring my emails and calls all year. When I finally corner her on the red carpet, she talks to me with a smile so toothy I think she wants to eat something. Miss America has always been a disruptor. I hear her repeat that phrase over and over like a mantra, hoping anyone will buy it. You aren't supposed to call Miss America a pageant. Instead, it's a competition for scholarships. Apparently, even losers can win money. But who's winning? It's mostly white women, some Black, very few Asians, even fewer Jewish or any out queer women. The Miss America board is all white. Black women weren't allowed into the Miss America pageant until 1970, and everyone remembers what happened to the first Black Miss America, Vanessa Williams, who was forced out by the organization after Penthouse published unauthorized nude photographs of her. Fewer remember that Williams, as well as Miss America in 2014, Nina Delvori, the first woman of Indian descent to be crowned, were targeted by racists angered by their wins. That's a neat trick. Crown a few black and brown women and claim representation, while the organization still stays white and still largely rewards white women. It's pageant day, Brent Adams, Vice President of Branding and Development for Miss America, tells me in the morning when he explains why no one is there to give me my press badge. I have to beg my way into breakfast without any credentials. It turns out that wearing lipstick and smiling a lot is just as good as press credentials. P.S. It really is. I've used it in the caucuses. Guys, just try it. It's really fun. The pageant has technically been going on all week, and I've tried to live stream some of the events, but the live stream, which was a hasty afterthought, lost sound for me. I managed to see Annika Wooten, Miss Kansas, speed paint a portrait of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Still funny. Miss Missouri can twirl a baton so that it looks like an impossible bird. Miss Virginia Camille Schreier, this year's eventual winner, exploded chemicals all over the stage and a frantic science experiment that does nothing except demonstrate science. There is also a new section where the contestants get to pitch their platform, the social cause that they are supporting. Each speech is like a really fast TED Talk about the importance of battling cancer, sexual assaults, and the arts, no wait, STEM, and helping foster kids. They are very boring. I took a lot of notes that say things like, but who is really pro-cancer? I beg my way into the breakfast and sit down at a table and eagerly await meeting the former who will be assigned to our table. Formers is pageant lingo for the Miss Americas and state winners who return. It's here I meet Randy Howes, the DC organizer, who tells me there aren't as many formers returning this year. Howes tells me they're not returning because they don't approve of the changes, the leadership, and the way things have been handled. Dunlap confirms this in text messages she sends me throughout my time at the pageant. It's in Connecticut, she texts. Connecticut. Hal doesn't hate the casino. No one I talk to hates the casino. It's just Connecticut in the winter they object to. Later that night on the red carpet, I ask Hopper about the controversy about everything falling apart, and she just tells me change is hard. Not everyone is going to be on board. Later, I overhear her tell another reporter that people are mean and Facebook is mean. She notices me listening and turns her back on me. The breakfast is a little awkward. After all the formers are introduced, they randomly draw a number from the bowl that corresponds to a table number. My table gets Miss Minnesota 1983, Vicki Plaster Kuipers, whose daughter, Katherine Kuipers, is Miss Minnesota 2019. The two are only one of 11 mother-daughter winning pairs. We are served a breakfast of sausage and eggs and encouraged to make small talk with the former at our table. Miss Wyoming, outstanding teen, is also at my table. Her mom picks at the breakfast and explains in detail her process of making sweet potato pancakes and where I can find a better breakfast than this. If only I'm willing to head out to the local strip mall where I can find an all-you-can-eat that has way better eggs than the Mohegan Sun. After breakfast, I go to meet Miss Iowa because that's where I live. And it's like going to meet a state representative who you didn't vote for, but somehow is supposed to embody something about your state that you cannot really define. I don't end up meeting her. Pageant day, of course, but her mother is there. Miss Iowa's mom is confused about her daughter's success. Not that she doesn't think that her daughter should win. It's just that Emily Tinsman started pageants in college, and now suddenly here they are in a casino in Connecticut right before Christmas. What a world. At this breakfast, there are more sparkles and gowns than I saw at my high school prom. I'm worried I'm not ready for tonight. Do I need to look fancy, I ask? Oh, everyone dresses up for tonight, Leslie Moore, the executive director of the Miss Iowa pageant, tells me. She gently adds that Batiste is the best dry shampoo, and maybe I should pick some up at the Sephora. I didn't really plan on dressing up. At the last minute, I threw a jumpsuit in my suitcase. It's the jumpsuit I bought off the internet so I could look like Phoebe Waller-Bridge in Fleabag, but I haven't worn it at all. I don't usually go to fancy events. I live in Iowa. Even our fanciest restaurant wouldn't kick you out for sweatpants. But I remember the Sephora, and after talking to more bewildered and proud parents, I run to go get some fake eyelashes. I end up spending 4 hours getting fancy between the shopping, where the cashier at Sephora tells me that the Miss Americas are buying Makeup Forever setting spray and dry bar, and the shower, and the hair curling, and the excruciating 20 minutes of application and reapplication of my eyelashes. Glue them, blow them gently with your breath, gently apply, press, blink, and the eventual run to Walgreens for double-sided tape to keep my boobs inside my outfit, and Excedrin for migraines because I'm getting a migraine. I'm ready, and it wasn't cheap. When it's time for the contest, we go into the arena and I go buy a beer. A man hears the cashier tell me happy birthday as he checks my ID and insists on leaning on the counter and buying me a beer. He is Miss Vermont's uncle. A couple of moments later, his angry wife is tapping him on the shoulder, asking where he's been. She looks so tired. I wonder if they have kids. I go sit down, and the show is on. I watched 50 of some of the most impressive women in America sing, twirl batons, and perform science experiments on stage. They talk about how they have saved actual babies and answer questions more eloquently than most elected representatives. They are so beautiful, it takes my breath away. The skin's so moisturized, they glow. Their eyeliner so perfect. The way they turn and smile so that the corners of their mouth make this perfect little C and not the aggressive V, see, of plebeian mouths. Legs and hips pop out at disarticulated angles. They have all learned these moves. They are acting out a myth. But whatever else they are still defined by their bodies. Each contestant has to sign a contract saying they've never been pregnant and never had children. They can't be older than 25 years old. They also have to be single. Translation, no abortions, bodies pure. Even if they aren't donning swimsuits and strutting on the stage, their viability in the pageant is about the sanctity of their bodies. Just like Margaret Gorman, the childlike, innocent first winner, they must remain pure objects of desire, tight, poised, flesh vessels for our values. No matter how you change the rules, it will always be about that. And I know that, and they know that. These women know what a pageant is. It's just that they know they can win. And if the enterprise of femininity is fucked, then why not find ways to win where you can? Why not capitalize on it and earn a little money? The issue comes up in the final question when the celebrity judge, Queer Eye's Karamo Brown, asked the final two contestants whether partnered women and mothers should be allowed to be Miss America. Well, quite honestly, when I go to schools, I teach kids all the time about the difference between Miss and Mrs. And that's a fun opportunity for me to explain why I'm an unmarried woman. And I think really that pays homage to the tradition of being a Miss America. And I think it's something that should be kept, Miss Virginia, Camille Schreier responded. When Miss Georgia, Victoria Hill, was given the chance to respond, she said, I think it's also really important that Miss America be a single woman, not dating anybody or in a relationship, so that she can be fully dedicated to her job. The contestants are standing on stage in ball gowns, posed like the rich characters in a prestige drama, all long lines, impossible angles, and bold fabrics. The auditorium is nearly empty. This year, the TV ratings were down by an additional 16% from last year, beaten out by the Democratic debate and CBS reruns. The women are quickly culled from the stage in large numbers until the final five remain. I wanted Miss Texas to pull through, but the journalist from Refinery 29, who was sitting next to me, was a contestant in the Miss USA system and guesses that Miss Texas won't make it. This is always the way, she says, gesturing to the mostly white stage after Miss Texas is eliminated. It's down to the final two. Schreier, the scientist from Virginia, and Hill, the opera singer from Georgia. Miss Illinois' cousin told me that Hill was edgy, but I think that just means she has short hair. After Schreier is crowned, I go to the press conference. By that point, the internet buzz is about Caitlin Cox, Miss DC, who claims in a video that the Miss America organization asked her not to talk about her personal platform advocating for rape victims. Mund, Miss America 2018, shares the video on Twitter. I asked Schreier about it at the press conference, which happens a full hour after it's scheduled. She sidesteps and says that she never felt pressured by the organization. I ask her about not being able to be partnered or a mother. I tell her I am a mother, a single mother. I think I want her to see me just a little bit, to look me in the eye and tell me I can't do it. But it's not about women. It's about a specific type of woman. These women. She sticks to her answer. She has cats. She can barely handle them. How could she handle kids? I think the line is supposed to be funny, but no one laughs. I also have cats. I mumble in response and sit down. After that, another reporter and I bluff our way into the after party in the casino's fake glacier, where no one is dancing on the dance floor lit up by pink and blue snowflake lights. A woman who works with pageants in a Western state comes to find me. She's drunk, so I won't write her name, but she tells me she only has boys. She wishes she had a girl, just one girl, so she could be part of all of this. The drunk woman waves to the empty dance floor in the fake glacier. Part of this. Moore, the executive director of the Iowa pageant, finds me. She tells me her dream is to see Miss America return to its former glory. She wants the pageantry, the swimsuits, the gowns. She wants the hyper-feminine creation of feathers and glitter, crowns and manicures, heels and lined lips. She doesn't think it can survive without that. I don't know if Miss America can survive at all. Next year is the 100-year anniversary of Miss America. Will it last then, beyond? I try to envision Moore's version, a stage of women, tight-waisted, draped in gowns, performing a specific kind of womanhood in front of me. The dance floor is empty while Whitney Houston belts out that she wants to dance with somebody. That night, at the Miss America pageant, I saw a woman placed on a throne without a kingdom while no one watched.
Liz, thank you so much. That was fantastic. And yeah, I'm all smiles over here. Thank you so much again. That was great. Yeah, everybody, wherever you're at, give it up. I'm still used to doing this at Ross Talks, even though we haven't done that very much. We got to bring everybody back home. Next up, coming to the virtual stage, we have Gail Marie Thompson, who is the author of Helen or My Hunger from the great Yes, Yes books, which came out in 2020, and Soldier On from Tupelo Press in 2015, and 2 chat books. Her work has appeared in American Poetry Review, Tin House Online, the Adroit Journal. Is it Boat or Boat? Is it Boat? I don't know. I always get it wrong, and I hear everybody else get it wrong, so I don't know how to believe, but it's a really
My
cool
head
journal.
is Boat, so I don't think it means anything.
There you go. Thank you, Gail. It's a super amazing journal and press. You should definitely check it out. And Crazy Horse, among others. She has received fellowships from the Vermont Studio Center and the Kimmel Harding Nelson Center for the Arts, and has worked on the editorial teams of Jubilat, Crazy Horse, Fairy Tale Review, Georgia Review, and Slope Editions. She's the founding editor of Jellyfish Poetry and co-host of the Arts Advice podcast, Now That We're Friends. Gail lives in the mountains of North Georgia, where she directs the creative writing program at Young Harris College. Please welcome Gail Marie Thompson. Gail, take it away.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for having me. Thanks, Ryan and Sarah and all of y'all for coming. Oh, man. So I do want to read a little bit from Helen and give a little bit of an explanation for it. Explanation. I'm so sorry this book is out. I'm going to give an explanation for it. Mainly because we just had a lot of talk about beauty and flesh vessels and things like that. And I think that really comes into this. But I also was really inspired by Allison Joseph last night. And I think it would be, I think I would be amiss to not read to y'all a little bit of my manuscript that isn't out yet, but includes a lot of poems that I wrote, well, a few poems that I wrote last summer during the that thing. So, last summer. And because I'll talk about it when we get there. So a little bit from Helen. I guess just a quick explanation. I don't want to go too far into this because I can. It gets really heady philosophically in my head, but I think I might be overthinking it sometimes. But so much of the manuscript or the book now, is to Helen of Troy. The things we know about Helen of Troy is many things. There are a lot of things done to her by men. She was stolen. She apparently, started the Trojan War because she was so pretty. It's all her fault. She's just so pretty. People start a war. Whatever, it's fine. But really the book is about this kind of revision of Helen of Troy, which was done by the poet H.D., the modernist poet H.D., and she basically kind of goes off of this alternative myth, which says, what if Helen was never even there to start the Trojan War? What if the gods, and this is kind of what I think Stesichorus says, it's a little bit of jealousy there. I'm still a little toxic femininity maybe. But yeah, it's fine. So essentially H.D. kind of says, what if she was never there to start the war? What if the gods had basically put a ghost or a phantom like in her place? And basically, I think the point of that is that it didn't really matter who was there in the first place. They were going to have a war anyway, and they just wanted to blame it on a lady. So that's kind of where I come from that story. So essentially, the poems in here, half of the poems are really talking to this ghost of Helen, who I sort of kind of look at as like mother, femininity, gender in general, like strict, like identify, what in God's name even is a woman? Like there are all sorts of really big questions that are asked of Helen, and not necessarily just the myth, but kind of like looking at Helen as if she's just some sort of, again, what is it, a flesh vessel of beauty? Like she's supposed to be this thing of feminine beauty, and what the hell does that mean? And so I'll kind of stop there and start reading a little bit from there. Okay. Oh, I can't. It's very dark in here. I have to see a little bit better. Okay. With lemon voices, they called you hated Helen. Side note, Homer calls her a bitch. Just in another thing, he calls her a bitch. I'll go back. They called you hated Helen. They called you Eidolon, icon. In the cooked tin sheet, I can see her face, yours, your eyes scooped out and over, sands shift, pulled down into a strip. You're no one's mother. I've placed all of this in you, Helen. I'm scratching it out, groove-voiced. This is not an embrace, but a crimp, a coil. I breathe out to talk to you, am suddenly not my own. If I am a creature with a sense of time, of passage, lapse, rupture, or ecstasis, I can be said to remember. I foam trees at the mouth and approach story. To name her is desire. To name her is a violence. Helen is no Helen, but is she lack or artifact? A gash of solidness, a wooden bowl of teeth to break the narrative. A mother whose fingers tick against your wrist one by one. The mark carries over and over. But she is a beautiful body to mark, this body as speech act. A beautiful body that swells slowly, expands, empties. Naturally, too, she is nude, a mass of protein and blue ink. Her nude body filled with charcoal, teeth of charcoal. You can palpate the gold peeling crust of her. You can palpate her. To long for a subject is a lack, must be desire, but it is a retreat further into the cage. I bite her image close to the knuckle. I call her wine dark in her cloister, her gathered rotundities. I didn't want to find Helen. I never find Helen. I wanted to write to the eidolon, to the ghost. I want a place, person, name, toward whom to address the breach. I'm thinking of nonsense now, Helen. June, a gash of poplar, and the silver light on my chest at 4 a.m. rereading a big astronomy book on the counter at the hotel restaurant where I work, married with children on the television above the bar. I eat too many croissants and a pistachio muffin and vomit sugar into the bathroom stall. I eat pineapple and keep it down. Perhaps I would like to have more than one body, this one too dismantled, too carnivorous, mistaking mourning for salvage. Helen, you're right to worry, I want to say. I have nothing to give and it tastes sour. Sometimes in this story, I cannot read the traces or half turn my head, but for some dim mirror. I dress in the dark and no one knows. Mermaid, myth, bloom of breast and carpenter, always, Helen, you drown. Lose your shiny peel of memory, mark frame and frame by incision. You drown, and I carve slabs of wax. You fast before men who will have you in this house, men peering over their glasses of beautiful, beautiful. I write from the belly of the eye, the breaking of the fan. I read and need it to fold me. The only name for this is palimpsest, to go over the tangle again and again. In dreams, I carry women on my back. We could double up to hunt, Helen. We could learn to love in private, widening in Greek. I write this breach for you, Helen, a system I've already followed before I can say I follow. And it is unremarkable, this longing as medium. Instead of knowing, this body names. This body takes and takes its mark, the forgotten version crystal under its thumbs. This poem you read equals the length of fission. What I speaks around what I. I'm typing this instead of writing by hand, Adrienne Rich writes, because my wrist on the right side blooms and rushes with pain. Her tool of communication aches, but the answer is not, yet I am writing, but instead, I'm in pain, and therefore my writing comes to you this way. The form becomes the telling, teeth marks on the frame. I just like reading this, so I'll read it. Helen, I was speaking to you when I wrote a trick about termites. I spoke to you when I wrote, the glass bends with the fecundity of mother termites. I spoke to the window with my own body's naked mirror in it. I spoke lit with sweat, with ruin, a gold peeling crust along the ruptures, coherence, freshly cut. What was unsaid and swallowed turned scrimshaw, ivory yellowed from thirst, and dry heat, dry heave. This part, the meat of me, the only meat of myself, the simplicity, the purge, the open net, how irreducible it felt to burst hard, to destruct, to build the body, then destroy it, to dread the suspension I knew in my throat, and again to bright red to face my body and deflate. Form is restriction, is instruction, is no soft space, is where I bleed above my space. I face my own carving and chain it to the floor. I trace its red wool, its calcium push and pull. How do I see it? How do I know to see the object of a body? And how do I read such a disappearance? When is a throat not like a cave? Now, the orange tabby outside, she wants to eat from my hand. Good women, virus, etc. I want to end on a fairly good note. Let's see. All right. How did she hold a nectarine? Who stood kissing her belly like the ship's bow? What did she see in silk stockings in the breasted light of the gray pier glass? Were her eyes screened and away? Was her dress blue dashed and signal heavy? Did her hard oaken scars show through? Did she at all find me here, painted with the telephone of her? Was she more afraid of fog or field, living room or bank? How did she move through this caroled multiverse? Had she seen a glacier filled with rivets and the bodies of mermaids? What glowing berries did she hold in her lap, waiting for the snow to start? Was she always told to be full when not to be? Did she write the fecundity of mother termites when she really wanted to write eating disorder? Was she glad to have me in her future? Did she hear the daughter upstairs watching National Velvet? How often did she speak of willing bodies to be good? Did she alone have a throbbing lightness, a courage in defining some quick green beginning? How then did she recover the hyacinth body, my body, like her body? So that's Helen. Okay, so I think I was really looking for some like poems of joy and gratitude, guys. I really tried. And I feel kind of like a phony. I like went through all my poems and I was like, oh, wait, the ones I want to write are real bad. So thinking about what Alice and Joseph said about kind of like how we used our pandemic time, I started writing in the summer. And that was about it. I really stopped. Everything stopped. And I think I'm not sad about it, honestly. I feel really good about it. I kind of was able to have a little breakdown that I needed, like not in a really horrible way, but like everything stopped. And I needed to, like, it was really good that kind of I needed to stop working for a little bit and kind of understand the things that I wanted and why I wanted to do it. And so I feel like when I come back to poetry, I'm going to really want to get at it. And I honestly, this workshop, I've already started writing a little, so that's great. But so thank you guys. But I feel like, yeah, I felt like it was okay because once I got back to it, I knew I would, but I feel like it would be extra, like it means more than just like, oh my God, I need to write. So anyway, right before the pandemic, in the last the previous 6 months of the pandemic, I had two acquaintances, two friends pass away pretty quickly and tragically. And so I was already writing poems to them before the pandemic. And so that kind of, I think, maybe sets the tone. Another kind of context thing is that I moved to a really isolated part of Georgia in August of 2019. And so I like to say my quarantine started in August of 2019. So you'll hear a lot of stuff about nature, like gross, lovely, beautiful. And that's, I think, a lot of this is like nature's super gross and it's dying all the time, but it's also being birthed all the time, which I really love about it. So you'll hear a lot of nature in Georgia in this. Okay. This is from a manuscript I'm still trying to get out called Dummy Prayer, which is basically like a fake prayer. All right. This is called When the Moon Keeps Rising and My Beautiful Friend is Still Dead. I think about hitting that squirrel. More specifically, I think about the after, coming back to the spot where he lay like a crater, hands pink and cold settled under his chin, how the dog wanted to take him in his mouth and run far away and keep running. Or even after that, the next day, when I came back to find him gone and realized that by any bone rule and law, the night animals have surely taken him out in their filthy jaws and jubilance. And I couldn't stop thinking about what must have been waiting nearby all day until the moon edged in to come to take care of this waste, the hot pillow of blood by its head, brow of tired tread, to take their only meal and unpeel it from the world. And I know that the dry wood of her body must be nothing or almost nothing by now. And I know that what I try to carry of her falls open in the crosswind. And so I can bless the bush hog and brush clearing in their turning and turning. And I can praise the most perfect vermin, hold the world's ugly methane to my face. But the bowl empties and empties, teeth, fingers, hair, nerve endings, the bottom drops out. For all the looking after we do, there's no earth underneath to take us on. Some stranger his body's jaw is now, some wet bones we chew to make way for new days. I find myself counting as I wait for the faucet. My dog is drinking water, I'm so sorry. I find myself counting as I wait for the faucet water to warm, stalled at the same crackling devotion, the endless distance of copper and her. And because before I was only thinking rock, rock, squirrel, rock. That was a tough one. That was driving up to my house over all the gravel. Okay. And this one is moving to the mountain. It seems, this is called The Divide. It seems important to know the names for this smallish mountain. What cleave could take me on, wounded in an under the porch way, still marked with the blueprint of a predator, feet sleek, evolved to mimic the prey it longs for, like how the feet of foxhounds resemble those of foxes, just that beat of cruelty, dovetailed. In March, I ask a neighbor, is there another side to this gap? Am I on the wrong mountain? I see no evidence of when the laurel blooms, just leaf after leaf in the forever present. I search for Bosnian recipes on the internet, watch as the bellflowers plate their way through the glossy dog shit of my yard. Mine is a ground problem. This has nothing to do with the mountain I moved to. The dog screams with the fox as if full of holes blown clean. I cut off my sleeves. There's no one on the other side. My friends are sick and I will never know. And this is one actually that, thanks to this workshop, I kind of changed a little bit because reading over it, I thought like my mindset had kind of changed. And thanks, gratitude workshop. Yeah, so this is about kind of, I like calling it turnover. It's that like idea of nature just kind of always turning over itself. In the time it took to make this sentence, the spinal shadow of my house has leaned its wet angle over the yard so completely, a massacre so small, yet loved, like the family lick of the herd, that it ripples out into the yard and to the warrens underneath, near the moldering orange and its slack rind, and the gully's mouth torn open like a birthday streamer. Because the earth betrays as it scrapes away, like some black treadmill, so that from underneath races a land so struck with its own disappearance that the folded fawn knows each strangling ramp is right on the verge of opening, and that the dip of hooves on the summit of a sand mound bears witness to the jaw cracked slack, to colony collapse, how little and yet how much it matters to count the dead. All right. I like this one. I read this one a while ago when I was in Vermont. This is from my friend Oliver. They make some things easier here so that other things get harder. Who will be with you when you become? I'm not asking for me, but for the girl character who waits behind my eyelids, the wild foam of her that spreads only outwards. Most of the time, I feel her endlessly gone. The sun stuns my empty shoulder. My scars turn to milk, gesture, counter gesture. All I want is to swallow my own form of mercy. When asked, I describe where I was as a kind of sanitarium. No longer anything healing, I run into error. I run in the cold until I have a dark stain of copper, the outer ring meeting the offering breast of the inner ring. I turn frustration into bodily harm, rub my skin till the blood comes. I become heat and breath and pink thrust. The body has its own memory. I brush against it when I bathe. I was at a place where mercy began, but I didn't really know it. Oh yeah, I've got another one about a fox. This is called Coming Up. Oh no, okay, I found it again, just kidding. Coming Up. It's June last year. It's June, and I turn and turn my wet leg and sleep in hopes of making a poultice. Tadpoles clot the stormwater puddles left by tire tracks. Fat bags of mammatus clouds glow a dumb blue. I've taken to calling this world Pete, the most useful of deaths. I nod to it as I watch my dog shit behind the glossy blackberries. But there is no field here. March killed so much this year, like every year. The gray earth mouths and pushes. There are signs of a field, but no field here. The bog we have is tender, with every intention of a good underneath. Knowledge floods, we fire to raise. A fox announces herself like a star in wobbling red. Okay. I guess I'll read like one more. Oh, I gotta read this one. Okay, I'm gonna read two more. All right, this one's called Hand Me My Leather. Is anyone a Tori Amos fan? Just, it's fine, sure. Don't tell me if you're not. Hand Me My Leather is a Tori Amos song title. Don't worry about it. But this made me think a lot about kind of guilt, mercy, who deserves mercy, who deserves guilt. Thinking a lot about that. Then I was thinking a lot about Passover, I guess, in this poem too. So this is called Hand Me My Leather. If I am past mercy, it is only to show that I can invent laws too. Drawn inside the deep pink of public throat, bless of chain link, I remove 10 drops from the cup with my fingers. It makes more sense to be sacerdotal, to give frantic apologies for death and tumors, assault and freelessness. Deserve a white chance we lessen and lessen, giving out noble shots to the chest. We want penance to be a true seam, rosary a sentence so blooming we carry it within us like a key. This is no easy landscape, a bruise of walnut oil dropped from above. We watch, and still beauty also watches. Most of what I felt when crossing the frozen lake was nothing, but still I made myself my own model of bravery. I don't know revenge. I look for aphorisms to wake to, ask the machine of myself to pull at me in a way that produces a cry. I want to know the places where darkness was bought, what plagues took to an iron chair like seasons, one by one, after one, then another one. I'm still frightened by peace. Not even a crocus can be beautiful without forgetting. The trail is still flooded with the suffering of others. We remove 10 drops from the bitter throat. We remove 10 drops from the bitter throat. And then this is the final poem called Dummy Prayer, which is the title of the manuscript. Yeah. I think this says a lot about, it says a lot about kind of the practice that we do to talk to people and to try and show gratitude, even if we're not totally sure, like any prayer, right? Like that we kind of do regardless of whether we 100% believe it at the time, but the prayer and the ritual itself really matters, whatever ritual you do. So anyway, dummy prayer. Let me begin with the weight of sleep, with a cheeky look to my mother, with a wounding, with 9 words for pardon. This is what I would wish for, to burrow through this cycle like a vole in the yard and emerge a new myth, hungry and swirling, after a long night of no heartbeat, no wakeful pupil pulsing under my thumb. This is what grief could be like, its clever enamel. Instead, it is a blue bowl. It is jealous, nothing but a beating, a deep shoulder bruise from breaking open my own door. It is eating and eating, the body a retreating vehicle to mark time, the hot milk rags slack of comfort. I want the first 8 salutations. I want Jupiter as viewed from its south pole. I'm about to recite the 10 plagues, and I need to insert a name for God, any name, any God. And that's it. Thanks, guys.
Gail, thank you so much. Yeah, it's beautiful. And thank you for reading new work. I know everyone in your class is getting new work, and it's always such a joy at any reading for someone to read something that's fresh and probably a little uncertain. And
I felt I owed it to them.
I mean, yeah, and some of that too, but it takes a little bit of courage and more than just reading normally. And it's just, I think, a gift for everybody, So thank you so much, Gail. Appreciate it. Wow. Okay. Breathe. Next up, coming to this virtual stage, we have our novel instructor for this year, Tarek Shaw, who is the author of Whiteout Conditions from $2 Radio. And I just want to shout out, if you don't know $2 Radio, that's a press that you should definitely check. A lot of these presses that you're hearing, you should check out. But $2 Radio, I just want to shout them out. Book came out last year, 2020. His chat book, Heart Assist Device, was a finalist for the 2019 No Deer Small Anchor Press Chat Book Series. A Best of the Net Award nominee. His work has appeared or is forthcoming in Diagram, Jubilat, Heavy Feather Review, Shirley Magazine, No Deer Magazine, Anomaly, and other publications. He lives in Brooklyn, where he currently teaches. We're so happy and grateful that he's teaching at the conference this year. Tarek, please take it away. Thank you.
Thanks, you guys. It's a real honor to be here. Thank you so much, Ryan and Sarah, Liz, Gail, and Joe. It's really a real pleasure to be a part of this. And thank you so much to the students who have been really fantastic and really engaged. It's made the past couple days really, really awesome and a real treat. So I'm glad to be here. I'm going to read some of my book, Whiteout Conditions. It's got a flashy kind of, hey, look at that cover. This is the 2.0 radio version. I read sort of towards the beginning, and then I'm gonna maybe read a poem. It's a new poem. It's kind of like new work. Kind of feeling like I'm going to share it based on the wild spirit of Ellis and Joseph last night. That was incredible, and so that's like really important. And so I'll share it, and maybe it sucks or maybe it doesn't. I'm just gonna start from the beginning, basically, you know. So there's no preamble. With the last of my loved ones now long dead, I find funerals kind of fun. Difficult to pinpoint what it is. I'm drawn to them. Call it an article of faith. They aren't what they used to be. And I am not my old self. I'm thinking of the deep boom and hush after the pastor shuts his thick tome of hymns and the heavy groans of the pews when everyone kneels. What comes to mind are the high school boneheads loafing around the holy water stoop, too rad to grieve, or who never learned how, never learned that it is learned, like formal dinner etiquette or gallantry in the face of certain peril. It's the secret stoner altar boy glad to swing a censer, the blown apart family, uniting for a minute to ridicule the reverend's lopsided toupee, the great uncle with trouble reading in the filmy pulpit daylight, his index finger trembling. Or when I drift off during an old man's eulogy only to get clocked in the forehead with a truth bolt, changing my vision of retired Honda dealers forever. At a certain point, the mileage accrued by hearts, like any muscle car, is just too fantastic. Once it was the apoplectic rage of a niece pacing the narthex, denied the chance to damn her uncle to hell, tell him she loved him. Sometimes it's the waterworks, other times the hearse. It was the pious haste with which Muslim grievers dug the grave, buried the doctor, how that left everyone in a swarm, a bit headspun and forgetful the dead's dead. The wholehearted embraces given me by evangelists to whom I didn't speak at all, the fervent strangers touched, I'm there, who cared I'd come, each hug verging on a submission hold. And it's the bright secret that won't quit tap dancing behind my benign expression that I keep from them, that ensures their enthusiasm and sincerity are squandered on me. Or a jogger. Sometimes there will be a jogger who will gawk like a rubbernecker, or just keep jogging, maybe go a little faster. Seeing my buddies in suits for the first time. A grandmother past remembering why she's there. Sometimes it's as simple as a song of tribute sung by someone who can't sing at all. You see people for who they are. And they don't mind being seen. And it's lovely in a way, that unabashed flawedness in the face of such heavy exposure, perhaps never to happen again. All of which would likely be overlooked were I choked up by some stiff in the coffin. It's everyone wondering what I'm doing there. It's all the suspicious looks. Why aren't you sad like us? Oh, they ping right off me. Shadowing death. Handling death like a snake charmer, fishing cobras from his wicker basket, wholly impervious to fang and by now safely immune to its venom, and how sometimes it's the other way around. Funerals are kind of fun, yeah. I've cultivated a taste. It's become a kind of social pursuit. It was a kink of a kind. But now Ray, I see his face, the one in the photograph, the reporter in the field held up to the camera with its fresh acne, and his right cheek's dimple deeper than I remember, and him taller than his mother. And I'm having trouble sustaining a positive mental attitude. Now, a python's double-jointed jaws, death opens wide. And what do I know about such creatures? I consider putting all of this to big old Hank, who, after sucking down his third screwdriver beside me on the plane, gets talkative, wonders why I'm flying, what with the weather and all. Chicago had a heavy white Christmas chased by a short thaw, but the Channel 9 weather guy predicts a monster on the horizon. I say, funeral, as though it were a destination wedding. He's a day trader on the futures market. Manicured nails, plump baby face, silver cufflinks. He would think I'm horsing around, some sort of wise guy, and eventually expect a rational explanation, request a change of seats. But I'm coming clean. Ever play with matches as a kid? I ask. He clears his throat and nods, uncertain, as a pocket of choppy weather jostles the cabin, making Hank spill half his drink all over his nifty polka dot tie. After glancing down the aisle, he sucks the alcohol directly from the raw blue silk. And I pretend not to notice. Outside the window, Illinois' patchwork of snow-dusted farmland scrolls underneath us, the color of month-old bread. The freeways and interstates carving colossal esoteric runes into it. The tiny black trees that suture it all together. Vince and I say, we used to slick our arms in Aquanet and light ourselves on fire. Our new rippling blue sleeves blowing our minds. And funerals are like that now. Only everyone else is burning for real, and I'm completely fine. I down the dregs of my coffee. You ever do that? Hank buckles his safety belt, says he can't stand landings. So I drop it. All this turbulence is getting to me too. I'm back home, braving O'Hare's crowds. The holidays are through, but Concourse K is still a nightmarish glut of holly jolly backwash, slowpoke vacationers and duty-free shopaholics, Bing Crosby, and on-sale candy cane pyramid displays that all hound me faster for the exits. It's been a few years since I last saw Vince, who was on his way to get me out of here. We are off to Big Bend to bury what's left of his little cousin, Ray. I heard about it on the morning news. I caught the tail end of the broadcast. The young face on the screen seemed an organic extension of something startling in its familiarity to me. The sensational nature of the incident pushed the story into wider media markets, I think, all the way to the East Coast. So I gave Vince a call. I said I would come out, give a show of support. Though I could have done less, I said it was the least I could do. Vince and his family sort of took me in after my own family's disintegration. The last time I saw Ray, I think, he was 8 and I had just finished school. It was Vince's birthday. It was like middle autumn sometime. We cooked out. I remember Vince giving Ray his first taste of liquor, a swig from his solo cup of Captain Morgan and whatever. Then spending the afternoon with them, shooting hoops in the drive, a few old folks in lawn chairs giving color commentary. I remember watching Ray take that sip and Vince asking him, "How you like the taste of that?" And Ray makes this sour face and goes, "Beer's better." And all the old folks ate that right up. Slinking out past the baggage carousels, I have a post-flight cigarette that hits me so hard I swoon and gag like a rookie. But the parking garage fumes are a pleasant surprise. There is something I find nostalgic in the odor. It's all maple syrup and gasoline and the exhaust of a couple hundred idling taxi cabs. It's been around 5 years since I've been back. And yet the puddles of slush by the wall where smokers shelter from the cruel gusts seem pitiless as ever, and black and bottomless, and inky soup. I've missed even them. Here, the sky yawns white all day and rips your head off like afterburners once the sun falls off the horizon. But when the cold comes, it comes like a dream, lugging the dark in a big black sack. And the body readjusts to the old song it knows by heart. Planes arrive and depart. I know Vince is circling around here somewhere, eyes peeled for someone I barely resemble now. I forget the kind of car he drives. It's one of those big, dependable American makes, 4 doors and the type of interior that's not the leather option. The sort of car they don't really make anymore, built with a once fine quality and craftsmanship that has long since fallen out of practice. One of those made-up names that seems real. But who knows what state it's in? I smear out the smoke and wait on the outer traffic island for some kind of sign of him. My dad never drank. That lent him a certain polish that Ruby, the other woman, must have found magnetic. He was always the designated driver, the voice of reason drumming sense into whomever was first to get rowdy at dinner parties, the one who really had no patience for mom's drunk juggling, and who more than anything seemed to love to be the one to carry her up to bed. I, on the other hand, fucking loved it when she drunk juggled. She always started off small. We'd be in the kitchen getting dinner ready, dad either home or on the way. Like, hey, Aunt, check this out, she'd say. Never when I was looking at her. And when I did, she'd have like a couple of fingerling potatoes going with one hand, while the other swirled a cast iron pan of chopped onions. I would applaud her, then resume whatever homework, finger painting, or action figure brawl I'd been absorbed with. A little bit later, I would hear, uh-oh. I'd look up again, and there'd be red and green bell peppers vaulting into the air. And then the salt shaker, a few tablespoons. By her third glass of Merlot, she'd be onto the chef's knife, the cleaver, 3 or 4 champagne flutes. One time, instead of this performance, I watched her face. Despite all that like deadly hardware being airborne, her expression wasn't one of deep focus, but simple amusement. She was only interested in my wonder, beholding this marvelous act, this peculiar talent of hers. When she caught me looking at her, she winked. Then, calmly, she closed her eyes. Mom kept the spectacle going until a flute hit the floor, exploded, and we both laughed our heads off. She was gifted with the hands of a surgeon. They never trembled or fumbled or missed, even in the numbing winter morning and dark. Her hands were steady, clever instruments and worked with an agile precision that I found beautiful to watch. For a long time, I believed her touch cured the migraines I would get as a boy. I believed her touch cured, or her palms were dry and cool, soft as calfskin, and seemed to draw the pulse from its place behind my eyes. But the relief came from some other place, I think. Now, she kept her nails plain, and whenever the Avon lady encouraged her to paint them, or worse, hinder them with like Lee press-ons, Mom would get this crooked kind of look and see her to the door. She claimed she could do chainsaws, had juggled them before, but we only ever had the one. After the divorce, her weird charm grew brittle, and over time, she became the sober, pragmatic one. What home had become eventually became normal until high school started. Everything changes for everybody, but for us especially, since the doctors felt a lump in her left breast and then a mass at the base of her spine. This was right around homecoming, and Dad, who had at least kind of still been around, began to venture farther out to the periphery of our lives until he was more absent than present, more answering machine than man. But she still drunk juggled from time to time around the holidays or the date of their anniversary. I still clapped like hell. And she died that fall, just before Thanksgiving. The funeral was sober, pragmatic. I have no idea whether Ruby drinks or whether it was his sobriety she found attractive or just the veneer it cast. Either way, he must have preferred her figure to Mom's wildness. And I don't hope he is dead, but I act according to that assumption. When I find myself low on that, I simply wish it. The way it goes. I don't pull sour faces anymore. I figure, dead or alive, he's gone for good. That's pretty reliable. It does the trick. Still, beer is better. Thanks, y'all. Right? It's cool, right? Thanks. All right. Yeah, Allison Joseph's keynote was really great. And so I wanted to read this new poem. It's a new poem. It's kind of, I think I interpret it as sort of a pep talk, an argument towards staying around. I think that we have all been through all kinds of things this past year and a half, and so yeah, that's what it is. It's called Go Me. Granted, the castle's east wall is falling into the sea. Swallows have ravaged the squash crop she planted back when thoughts of leaving seemed gone for good. The cut losses took the car somehow down with them, and your index bruised breastbone smarts. Yes. And here you are, tweezing out shards of bone arrowhead in the shower, working joints, crying for a squirt of WD-40, stuck on how brightly you once burned. Haunting Ace Hardwares. You went from limited edition to bargain bin, all sales final, mine bowling ball heavy with conundrum and crude designs of payback via pickaxe. Still, a dozen years since you heard his untunable piano with the claw pedals fun to stomp. You can't read the guidebook, the warnings, the boilerplate letter of decline with combat boots still laced in that siege mentality of little use, but here the statistical odds of a turn upon Solomon's throne, succeeding at raising that healer upright, are akin to raising dead weight and priestesses. An objection, Cain, the sun, a fucking flower, the shy one you bet on. And okay, you still don't know your place any more than you did back when school still meant Abercrombie cliques and cemeteries lousy with skaters, and a French kiss if you could simply afford to sit still for a minute after hours with her, whose dad was a narc and lumberjack games contestant and spoke thick suburb, but still of all grunted hello once certain you didn't literally puff or still wet the twin bed like you did as a kid afraid of strange male boots downstairs. Who's older now, having trouble, but who isn't still a mere pinhead into Wolverine and scaling dogwoods to untangle from a mother's field of warm energy, still flickering with the old blue gaslight of love and promise, or at least the blood you dutifully kept lit in a glass prism that housed a locket which rattled with the claws of stray cats endlessly puling to be let out at night. So chin up. You have that going for you. Who talks to cacti, who runs from a flashlight moon, who is melting cheesecake with a blue flare to a dagger, who is someone's birthday's midnight. plus the still good leftovers in the chest freezer, because they'll always be good, and still so will you, who lost a heart to a wild broken gale, and you're feeling the pocks and pits of your dark basement for the fuse box, or honestly, when they all forget, the deal goes pear-shaped. The smell still plagues the rug you can't always get up from, or whose mildewed funk you still secretly huff for the attic visions it brings, which smack hard as still photos of you viewed too soon, or after a long time, or with a foreigner's haircut, but still are you. And so you fit your chills for concrete shoes to keep still on that shore. But still you find the winter's petrified starlight, and the croak of the truck door, and the streaks of blue still there salt are a bit like you, are sort of crystal enough to pass as semi-precious if you squint, and pretty amazing close up if you stay. Thank you, guys. Thanks again to everybody. I appreciate it.
Tarek, thank you so much. And more new. Yeah, I mean, like, I felt kind of the same way after Allison's keynote last night. I'd like, something's coming. And if you didn't check that out, people, you can check it out on our YouTube. That's up there. Highly recommend. Thank you again, Tarek. That was beautiful. Our final reader for the evening, I'm so excited to introduce, because I gotta take a little personal moment. I went to graduate school at Columbia College, Chicago. And when I started in 2004, and there was a book that a lot of people were reading that came out in 2004. It's called Hairstyles for the Damned, or Hairstyles of the Damned, excuse me. And it's kind of a trip to be introducing the author of that book, because that book was just just on everybody's minds and tongues, and yeah, passing around. So this is beyond cool. Our final reader for the evening is Joe Mino, who is a fiction writer and a journalist who lives in Chicago. He is the winner of the Nelson Algren Award, a Pushcart Prize, the Great Lakes Book Award, and a finalist for the Story Prize. The best-selling author of 7 novels and 2 short story collections, including Marvel and a Wonder, Hairstyles, The Damned, and The Boy Detective Fails. He is a professor of English and creative writing department at Columbia College, Chicago. Excuse me. His nonfiction book, Between Everything and Nothing, follows the lives of 2 asylum seekers confronting the perils of the U.S. immigration system. It was published in 2020 and was a New York Times editor choice and one of Kirkus' best books of the year. Please welcome Joe Mino. Joe, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ryan. I just want to say thank you to Liz and Gail and Tarek to be able to hear their work tonight. I'm just going to read a short excerpt from this book called Between Everything and Nothing. And I think in conversations with other writers recently, and just thinking about my own experience over the last 14 months, I think one of the things that I missed the most was the unpredictability and kind of wonder of meeting people, meeting strangers, and having a random conversation with someone, you know, after spending time in quarantine around people that you love, seeing those same faces over and over again. I really came to miss, you know, that random conversation that would occur waiting in line at a grocery store or at a coffee shop. And this book that I had the great privilege to write is about this incredible meeting of these 2 men who both attempted to make their way through the US asylum system. And if you don't mind, maybe what I'll do real quickly is if Sarah, I can just quickly share the screen. I'm gonna pull up a picture of the 2 subjects of the book, Razak Iyal and Seydou Mohammed. So here's a quick photo. These 2 gentlemen are incredible human beings, storytellers, and I had the great privilege to work with them for about the last 2.5 years, writing down their experiences. Both men grew up in Ghana, and those of you who maybe aren't familiar with Africa, it's on the West Coast. of Africa, and they both left Ghana in fear of their lives, really. Razak Yal ended up being targeted by a corrupt politician who sent these men after him to try and intimidate him to sell this land. And his family had to get some money together to help him flee the country kind of last minute. And he made his way from Brazil, where he could get a visa, up through Central America to the United States, where he pled for asylum in the year 2012. And then this other man is named Seydou Mohammed, and he was a soccer player back in Ghana, and he had the opportunity to try out for a Brazilian soccer team. And Seydou had grown up bisexual in a country where homosexuality or anything other than heterosexuality was forbidden, outlawed, and being found out to be queer, you would spend a minimum of 3 years in prison, if not have your life threatened, and oftentimes persecuted, beaten, and ostracized in his community. And what happened was, when Seydou had the chance to try out for the soccer team in Brazil, he slept with a man and was discovered by his team's coach, who threatened to end his career back in Ghana. So he grabbed his passport and some clothes and then fled with really on any plan. And he also traveled up from Brazil through Central America and then into the United States, where in 2014 he pled for his asylum. Both men, and unfortunately, and like many asylum seekers in the United States, he lost his case. Unlike the United Kingdom or France or our neighbor to the north, Canada, when an asylum seeker tries to apply for asylum in the United States, they do it on their own largely. So unless they come in with money to afford a lawyer, they have to plead their case. So in France or in England or Canada, asylum seekers are given legal representation. They're also placed in housing units and given work permits so that they can start working and start acclimatizing to their new countries. In the United States, we put our asylum seekers in for-profit detention centers. And both these men spent, one man spent 2 years in detention while he pled his case, and then the other spent about a year. And this incredibly strange thing happened. These two men grew up in this small neighborhood in Accra, Ghana, and had never met. They were about 10 years apart in age. And both of them took this kind of similar path through Brazil, Central America, United States. Both of them lost their cases. And while they were waiting for the Department of Homeland Security to clear them for deportation, both men in December of 2016, so just a couple of weeks after the election of Donald Trump, both these men decided to try and travel up through Minneapolis into North Dakota and cross into Canada on foot in order to apply for asylum up there. And they ended up meeting in this bus station, having never met before, didn't know each other. And it's that meeting that I'm going to read, this kind of miraculous meeting of these two men who are trying to cross into Canada to kind of plead for their lives. So just read a short little section here. And again, thanks so much for all the amazing inspiration from Liz and Gail and Tarek. So this is from the opening part of Between Everything and Nothing. Over 2 days, Seydou rode through 5 states, tracing the shape of the country through its arterial roads and highways. Different shadows flashed upon the bleary windows like faded images from an out-of-date movie. The snowy terrain, the long expanse of uninterrupted expressways, cities that seem to appear and then recede in the late December grayness. The towering, tattered billboards along the road, which cited biblical quotations condemning homosexuality and abortion. And then a few miles later, there would be advertisements for adult bookstores. All the meek-looking aluminum houses, all the different kinds of trees, the water towers in their muted colors, the automobiles abandoned in transoms along the side of culverts, the old steel bridges and discolored flags, The other people on the bus with their strange manners, all of it was so unlike home. Twice he changed buses and was able to grab some chips and a bottle of Coca-Cola. He thought about calling his brother, wondered if the government had a way to listen to the phone lines, and so he decided against it. He climbed aboard the bus again and tried to get some sleep. In the back of the vehicle, a young woman was singing. A child was crying. Over the last 2 years, ever since he had left Ghana, Seydou had traveled almost entirely by foot or on bus through South and Central America. He had seen the same faces again and again all over the world. The forlorn, the stubborn, the dispossessed were all forced to wear the exact same expression. He had seen something online days before, a Facebook post that said if you could make it across the border into Canada without being stopped by the US Border Patrol, you could apply for asylum on the other side, regardless of your status in the United States. The post said that the Canadians were more fair than the Americans and even offered free legal representation to non-citizens. All he had to do was get across. The bus station was nearly empty at 9:30 p.m. Seydou took a seat on a grimy metal bench and looked around. For a moment, the world revealed itself in all its amazing and tired complexity. The fluorescent lights looked false. The glow of the vending machines with their insistent hum, the overhead screens announcing departing buses, flickered regretfully. Someone across the way coughed, sounding as if they belonged in an emergency room. The only other Black person he saw was a round-faced man sitting alone, staring into the distance. He could tell by the other man's appearance, by his body language, by the color of his complexion, and also by his clothes, 2 jackets, a hoodie, and blue jeans, that he was African, that he was not from Minnesota, and he was not used to the frigid weather. The man looked to be in his early 30s with wide shoulders and a closely shaven beard with an amiable expression. Something about this other man's face, his features seemed familiar. Seydou decided to say something, and so he stood up and crossed the bus terminal. Hello. The other man looked up and said, hello. The accent was recognizable. Where are you from? Seydou asked. Ghana. Seydou smiled. I'm from Ghana too. Both men smiled and grinned wildly. From there, they began to speak in Hausa, their local dialect. The other man began, Mamemnu Sumaka, what's your name? Seydou. I'm Razak. Someone, some disbeliever, some political pundit, some sociologist, someone who did not understand the silent realm of migrants, asylum seekers, and other refugees, someone who had never been forced to flee their home. Someone who did not understand the bizarre coincidences, the signs and markings of being an individual thousands of miles from the country you knew would think this meeting was entirely improbable. Only consider the tens of thousands of asylum seekers who enter the United States each year. But having made the long odyssey first from Brazil, then to Mexico, then to the US, having met emigres from other African nations, including Ghana, all along the way, having heard the familiar tongue, the language of their homeland during their internment in both Mexican and US detention facilities, having seen others who, like them, were all searching. The fact that both these men spoke the same local dialect, that both men were Muslims, that both were from the same country, the same city, the same neighborhood of Nima, seemed like a marvel and also an inevitability. It made perfect sense that they would find another lost countryman to help them make their way on this, the final part of their journey, because it soon became clear that both of them were trying to cross into Canada. Not a ka, Razak asked. Where are you going? I'm going to the Canadian border, Seydou replied. Razak smiled. I'm also going to the border. Seydou asked, well, who are you waiting for? Nobody. I've been sitting here since this morning trying to come up with a plan. Seydou nodded. It occurred to the 2 men that they might be able to make it to Canada together, just as each had relied on companions, fellow asylum seekers, and other strangers since first leaving their homes years before. Seydou thought, okay, we can do this. We can make this journey together. Outside the bus station, a black taxi with no identification on its doors pulled up beside the two men. The driver rolled down the passenger side window and asked the men where they were going. The driver's face was unreadable, hidden by a dark baseball cap. They told the taxi driver they wanted to go to the US border. Grand Forks, the man said knowingly. From the tone of his voice, it sounded as if he had made the trip before. Both men were surprised, not knowing the name of the town in North Dakota where they were supposed to be going. Each of you are going to need to give me $200, the cab driver said. Sadhu and Razak felt this man knew what he was doing and did not ask him any questions. At any moment, they could be stopped by police, by an ICE officer, by an overzealous Trump supporter. So the decision was made without any other discussion. Razak climbed into the front of the taxi beside the driver, while Sadhu climbed in the back. The taxi driver, his face still shadowed by his hat, asked for the money right away. Eager to be off, the two men handed it over. Then the driver pulled away from the curb. How long does it take to get to the border? Razak asked. 4 hours or so, the driver answered, looking back at the road. It had begun to snow, adding to the large drifts that had already accumulated along the city streets. Neither Sadhu nor Razak had seen so much of it before. Even in Ohio or in New York, it never snowed like this. In Minneapolis, the snowflakes themselves looked larger, like paper cutouts, turning the urban sidewalks into hillocks of inordinate whiteness. In the end, there was just too much of it. The buildings, the parked cars, the stop signs, all of it seemed to dissolve into mobile shapes. Passing along the edge of the city, the black cab navigated along the drifts and finally took a ramp onto Interstate 94 heading north and then west. Both men talked and listened and nodded at each other's stories, glad to hear they were headed together in the same direction. Everything around them began to fade into a blur, a territory of suburban sameness. The houses growing farther and farther apart, the intersecting rings of the Twin City dissolving into interrupted fields of fluorescence, and then forests appearing and disappearing in permutations beneath the highway lights. The car's heater continued to roar as the temperature outside dropped to 8 degrees, then 6, then 5 as they drew farther and farther north. Passing over a bridge, both men watched the flurries as they continued to fall. The taxi slid and swerved once or twice. In the distance, up ahead, the highway seemed to fade beneath the accumulation of ice and snow. Sadhu looked out the window as the cab maintained its erratic progress, hopeful the vehicle's momentum would carry him far from the difficulties of his past. So that's it from my end here. I hope you, maybe you've been following our ongoing discussion about immigration over the last 3 or 4 years. And maybe like me, you knew very little about our actual immigration system, especially the asylum system. It was an education to learn how these men, women, and children are treated in our names. From feeling incredibly frustrated and angry to feeling just a great sense of humility that so many people are willing to risk their lives in order to start again here in this country. It was an incredible opportunity for me to get to know a little bit more about some of the people who make up the strangers in the world around us in the United States. And again, shout out, thanks to the fellow writers that we heard from this evening, and also special thanks to Sarah and to Ryan as well.
Joe.
Oh, Ryan, we lost your mic.
There we go. I think, maybe. Cool. Thank you so much, Joe. Sorry, a little audio mic issue here. Wherever you're at, if you're tuned in, give it up one more time for Joe, for Tarek, for Gail, for Liz. What an extraordinary reading. I've been really fortunate as executive director of the Writing Center and of the host of Spectra Reading Series to host a lot of readings. Been to a lot of readings all over. This was pretty special, y'all. So thank you so much for being a part of it. yeah, look out for more from the Writing Center. If you're going to the conference tomorrow for the last day, we'll see you there. If you're not, hopefully we see you soon. We got a lot of stuff going on. Our young emerging writers are going to be out doing some things soon too. You can catch them at Roz Talks if you're in the Quad Cities. July 22nd, Thursday, July 22nd. That's a little something to tease. Have a good night, y'all. Have a good weekend. We love you. Take care. Bye, con Dios.